Early? What kind of blasphemy is this? I say having been early, the last two times I went live as well. Those were exceptional circumstances. Anyways, what's up? Welcome back to the stream. Let me open this on up. Let's see, I have my .txt list. There's some news articles open. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yes. All right. Let's find a custom track worldwide, and then I can start running my mouth about politics because holy shit, there are so many things that have been happening in the world. Like not even joking here. Like it's been a while since there were this many things in one news cycle for me to talk about, but I guess here we are. A lot can happen in just a couple of days. Uh, we got a decent sized room here. I guess I want to start. Let's watch Seeger here. I want to start with of course the thing that's dominating social media right now, and the thing that I put in the title. Even though I didn't want this to be the big central thing of this stream, I have to talk about it. I think, and that is Yemen and the everything that's happening over there right now. Um, I'm gonna try to go over the situation as I currently understand it, and if there's something I'm missing, by the way, please do, fill me in on some details that I missed because obviously Middle East politics is a whole fucking thing. Um, what I understand to be the case is that currently the United States is bombing a bunch of targets in uh, Yemen, right? In the Houthi controlled territory of Yemen. Yemen is divided up into a bunch of different warring factions because, modern civil war meme. Uh, and although there are unfortunately going to be an inevitable amount of civilian casualties here because this is a military engagement um, in the 21st century, or really any kind of military engagement, uh, most of the targets that are being targeted, to my knowledge, are military targets. Because the Houthis are a non-state militia group in Yemen that is sort of acting as the government because they control most of its territory. The Houthis have been disrupting trade in the Red Sea, not by means of like a more conventional blockade, but by using drones, helicopters, some smaller vessels, and like other various methods of piracy to just attack random vessels, right? And most of these vessels, because they would be traveling in the Red Sea, most of these vessels are commercial vessels, and so some American and British ships were caught up in that whole situation where the Houthis were just dabbing on random merchants in the Red Sea. And they decided this is unacceptable because the Red Sea is probably the biggest trade lane, the biggest single maritime trade lane in the world, and decided to take military action against the Houthis, right? That's the situation as I understand it. And my take on this is that in the moment, right? In the moment, acting militarily against the Houthis to keep trade lanes open is justified from a global perspective. Um, but in the long term, it's like, obviously we should have never let it get to this point. There are so many mistakes that the United States made that led to this scenario. But now that we're in this scenario, this is more or less the correct thing to do. Um, it was unfortunate. I saw a lot of people whose opinions I usually agree with on Twitter for some reason turning into radical jihadists when the Houthis started bombing Western merchant ships in the Red Seas. Like, no, that's not good, actually. Now, of course, a lot of them were invoking the argument that the Houthis were interested in this case in stopping the genocide in Israel, or in Palestine by Israel, which is not true. I mean, the Houthi flag literally has writing in Arabic that reads "Death to the Jews" on it. Their problem is not with Israel, I assure you that much. And sorry, I'm having to concentrate a little bit here. Whoa, whoa, whoa! I didn't know that could happen. And also the other argument that I've seen people levy in support of the Houthis here that I had to give a little bit more thought to was that, you know, this is the same logic that people use when they argue against strikes. And that did give me pause. I was like, now hold on a minute. I don't want to be, you know, engaging in like strike-breaking activity, because that would be anti-proletarian and therefore cringe. But you see, there's a key difference between a regular strike and what the Houthis have been doing to merchant ships in the Red Sea. The only similarity, really, that these two things have in common is that they both disrupt the regular flow of commerce in a way. But strikes, we recognize, are part of that regular flow of commerce. They are a means of workers bargaining for better conditions at their place of work, right? And there are certain like organizational standards that typically are adhered to on a labor strike. And additionally, while there have been cases where this is not the case, labor strikes usually are, or at least start, as non-violent affairs. The objective there is not to, you know, kill civilians and just like cause general mayhem. No, it's a very specific strategy of economic disruption with an objective that would result in life overall being better, right? This is just a like, this is just privateering and piracy in its purest, most unadulterated and unproductive form. This is not part of the regular flow of commerce. It's like, this doesn't do anything for anybody. This doesn't help people in Gaza. This doesn't help, you know, allies of the Houthis. This doesn't help the Houthis, in fact. You know, all they are doing is like banging pots and pans together, right? It's not like banging pots and pans together with a purpose either. They're just sort of pestering much larger military powers, which ordinarily wouldn't be that bad. But, you know, you can't do that and then not expect to get BTFO'd by airstrikes. And also, like, as I mentioned, there's no real objective here. And it's a stupid strategy if there is some sort of named objective by the Houthis. And, you know, best to shut that shit down, right? Like, we all remember when there was a cargo ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal, the kind of consequences that brings. That's actually another reason why I think trying to stop the Houthis, and it really just in as a general direction of action, not, you know, necessarily in whatever form it takes, right? Trying to stop the Houthis here is a good idea, because like the kind of disruption we were talking about in terms of trade is so large that that's another way in which it's like incomparable to a labor strike. You know, with a regular strike, it's like the local and potentially the regional economy gets disrupted in some capacity, right? And that obviously has material consequences, but, you know, that's not economic depression material, right? Like, that's not going to cause the Great Depression too. If the Red Sea were blocked long enough, that would cause massive shockwaves around the world. It might also not be like Great Depression 2, but it would certainly generate another economic recession and even more chronic supply line issues, which would affect literally everyone on the planet. You know? So to reiterate and to be clear, I don't like the motives of either party in this situation. The United States is more interested in propping up Israel than it is in the security of global trade. And the Houthis are more interested in killing the Jews than they are in any sort of principled opposition to Israeli use of the Red Sea. But the happenstance of this situation is that if the Houthis keep getting away with just blowing up random civilian merchant ships in the Red Sea, the world economy is going to be pretty fucked. And if the United States and the United Kingdom continue to strike military targets in the Houthi-controlled territory, that would most likely discourage them from BTFOing random merchant ships in the Red Sea, which would mean the world economy in general is not fucked. That's my takeaway from that. And I don't want to spend too much time on it. It's already been 11 minutes of me talking about it, more or less. You know, there are worse bombing campaigns out there, and like, this is pretty bad too. I mean, it's a bombing campaign. But really, the worst thing is that the United States even allowed it to get to this point in the first place, and that we, like, are completely incompetent at conducting international affairs in the Middle East to begin with. You know, this is not, like, the thing to be focusing on here. I'm sure a lot of people would probably agree with me, at least on that, like, this is just, you know, in either direction, this is a symptom of larger things that are happening. He got a blooper. That sucks. Yeah, blue shelled in fourth. Anywho. I'm not going to make that into a segment because this discourse is stupid and I hate it. So, I'm done. I'm done talking about that. I don't want to talk about Yemen anymore. No more Middle East talk. Thank you. Anyways, what else? Was there anything else urgent that I wanted to get through? And oh yeah, okay. There's one other thing that I feel like I need to talk about, and then I can move on to the video that 1v3 recommended about social media that Matt had made. Although I would prefer they be here for that one, because I actually found two videos to that effect, and I'm not sure which video they meant when they recommended it to me. So. The next story that I had queued up for today is actually more unbelievable than what is going on in the Middle East. I mean, you know, bombing campaign in the Middle East, not the hardest thing to believe on any given day of the week. But this next thing would like genuinely got me to raise an eyebrow. Like it was quite a lot. If I have a moment here, I would like to pull up the tab that I have open on it. I think it was PBS, the Public Broadcasting Service, that did a story on this. I'm flying. Okay. 3 mushrooms. No, damn it. I hit the exact wrong part of the mushroom there. Somebody got a blooper? Base? The best item in the game. I'm just gonna use this here. Alright, Mega Mushroom. I'm gonna chain this. I don't know really a better place to use it. Okay. You know, in retrospect, maybe I shouldn't have introduced that story at the start of this race. It doesn't seem like I'm gonna have much of an opportunity to talk about it. Even to mention what it is, because it is pretty wild. And it has some sobering implications, I guess. Sobering political implications. Oh, shit! I can't believe I got him. Whee! Okay. PBS, Public Broadcasting Service. Alright, here's the headline. Families in disbelief after hundreds of bodies found buried behind Mississippi jail. Next race. The discovery of 215 bodies buried in unmarked graves behind a jail outside of Jackson, Mississippi, has left the community in disbelief. The families were angry that they were never notified of the deaths and how their loved ones are buried in grave marked by just a metal rod and a number. People in America might know the metal rod and number thing as a pauper's grave. A lot of people who were not wealthy enough to like afford a proper burial, they would have just a like thing that looked like a signpost with their name on it, or in this case, a number. This is an unmarked grave. Amna Nawaz discussed the disturbing details that have emerged with Betterston Wade and attorney Ben Crump. And there's an interview that follows this that comes after this of just one of the many people who had a family who were killed and stashed in this graveyard. Is there any long straightaway where I can... Okay, close enough. I'm trying to drive and read this story at the same time. It's going to be very difficult. Although if somebody gets a blue shell now, fucked. Alright. The gruesome deaths of 215 bodies buried in unmarked graves behind the jail outside of Jackson, Mississippi has left community in disbelief. Oh, I read that part already. That's just a reiteration of the previous paragraph, it seems. Let's see. The startling revelation, there we go, that this mass grave existed. Unmarked mass grave. Jeez. I have to concentrate. Came months after the mother of 37-year-old Dexter Wade filed a missing persons report last March. It wasn't until August when Betterston Wade had learned that had learned that her son had been hit by a police car and killed, then buried in that same cemetery. That is right. You heard that right. The police killed this guy and then buried him, or had him buried in that unmarked cemetery. Looks like a friend is online. Wow. Sure. Let's keep going here. For more about the disturbing details, there's an interview now. Okay, cool. Betterson Wade and civil rights attorney Ben Crump, who is representing her and other families. So they go back and forth here. Interviewer says, I understand, Miss Wade, you contacted the Jackson Police Department after reporting that your son was missing several times, even after he had been buried, without your knowledge. Give us a sense of what they told you over those many months and what those months were like for you, not knowing where your son was. Well, it was devastating to me because I didn't know where he were. And then I was calling them. They didn't have no information to let me know. Have they found any information? All the details that I gave them for leads, they never came back with me to say, well, that lead led to something that we can work with. And I just couldn't believe that he disappeared off the face of the earth and nobody knows where he at. Now, it is relevant to note, this is the mother of the guy that was killed by the police and then buried in that graveyard, which means that if they are giving her the runaround in this, in her interactions with them after he had been killed, it means that they knew exactly what they did and are covering it up. This is most likely the case with the majority, if not every single victim that lies in that unmarked graveyard in Jackson, Mississippi. The police have gone on some sort of killing spree down there. And I would imagine, since some of these people were left in the morgue for some time, that city officials are in some degree complicit to the actions of the police. Since there are, I think, almost 700 people buried in that graveyard, this goes beyond reckless behavior, and I think speaks more to, like, the attitudes of police in America, that they think they are some sort of vigilante justice cleaning up the streets. And no doubt are going on some sort of nighttime rampage, purging people who they believe to be degenerates in society. They might not use those exact words, but we've seen how the police treat people after they are dead, particularly black people, with the rhetoric surrounding folks like George Floyd being that, oh, he was no angel, sort of justifying the death after it happened. No doubt that is what's going on here. What is over there? Oh, that was cool. And I'll get back to reading the interview proper in just a moment. But the thing I wanted to bring up about this story, and what really struck me about it, is that, like, a lot of people perceive the Jim Crow era as something that has passed us by, that we are no longer in the days of Jim Crow, and for all of the faults of racial politic in America, you know, that's behind us. But this brings to mind that no, actually, it really isn't. You know, the Jim Crow days were marked by the systemic oppression of the black community, by the institutions of power, as well as, like, militia groups such as the KKK, as well as the police, because it wasn't that long ago that police were slave patrols in the antebellum South, and you know, they didn't go under any, like, real systemic change after that, only to become the Pinkerton gangs and stuff. And nowadays, I would imagine that most of the cops in Jackson, Mississippi, like, we're talking about the deep, deep South, these guys are no doubt going out at night with their hoods on to the local Klan meeting, right? Like, the KKK isn't dead. They've just gone underground, and they're a lot smarter about how they terrorize black people. You know, that's the sort of circumstances we're dealing with here. And it seems like I guess the what's the term I'm looking for here? The slide into the far right that the Republicans are doing, and that, like, a lot of people are doing, has come to a fever pitch where like, this is just sort of, like, fuck, man, I don't know. I guess for all of my huffing and puffing here, it would suffice for me to just say that because of incidents like this, it seems like the Jim Crow era just never actually ended. It just never went away, and that's what we're dealing with right now. cops are going out and killing black people at night. In Jackson, Mississippi, that is. So Miss Wade continues here. It was just horrible for me. And every day I wake up, I just look, look, just looking for him, just out in the streets looking for him. And I mean, that's heartbreaking for a mother. Uh, and can't say hello, don't know how to get in touch with him. That's a horrible thing for a mother. And I 100% sympathize with this woman. Um, in fact, the local news anchor later says some things that would indicate some suspicion that I would harbor towards them as well. Let me keep going here. So this back to the interviewer here, the local news person. They are now addressing the lawyer in this case. Mr. Crump, after it was discovered that Dexter had been killed, that he had been buried in this grave. His body was exhumed in November. There was an autopsy. He was given a proper burial. But I also understand. Let me take the shortcut and then I'll continue. I also understand a wallet was found in his pocket with his ID, his home address, and his insurance card. What is the explanation officials gave for why no one was notified that he had been killed or buried? Now, this is actually a really good question, but I think they're asking it to the wrong person, right? Like, the obvious explanation as to, like, oh, he had all of this easily identifiable stuff on him. Why was nobody notified that this was him? Well, it's because the officials were the one that killed him. Like, who do you call when somebody goes missing? The police. But what if it's the police that made that person go missing? Then what? You're just kind of fucked. Let's see here. It's Benjamin Crump, attorney for Wade and other families. There really is no explanation that they have offered. Okay, so he's saying that the authorities here haven't offered anything, because I guess it's just like, if you open your mouth at all, you'd just be digging yourself into a deeper hole in this case. They claimed that they tried to reach out to Mrs. Bernstein, or Mrs. Betterson. Sorry, not Bernstein, Betterson. But you should know that. And you should know that Mrs. Betterston is the named plaintiff in a lawsuit against the Jackson Police Department because they killed her brother 3 years earlier. So this isn't even the only family member this person has lost to the Jackson PD. Now she went through 2 criminal trials, had several press conferences. So when they called her house, if they did call her house like they claim, they knew where she lived. They knew how to get in contact with her if they really wanted to notify her that her son Dex had been hit by a police car. So it's very suspicious that they would just bury him in a pauper's grave because they said they could not identify his next of kin. Mrs. Betterston does not accept it. Because of her tenacity, it has exposed all of these loved ones being dropped in a hole in a bag behind a Mississippi jail. And now take Mrs. Betterston and her story and multiply that by several hundred. And that is the scale of the crime that we're dealing with in Jackson, Mississippi. People love, especially on the right, people love to talk about crime this, crime that, we need the police, back the blue. But they don't realize, and maybe they're oblivious to this fact, maybe they're willfully ignorant. The police are the crime in a lot of cases, especially in like the rural police departments. Police are little more than a well-funded gang, especially, keeping in mind the data that I've gone through earlier on other streams, that cops have never solved crime in a significant enough amount for the resources they get to be considered necessary. They've never solved a bare majority of crime, and crime isn't what they spend their time addressing. They spend their time fishing for parking violations and like traffic violations and stuff. And of course, when they're doing that, they're disproportionately going after racial minorities on the road. The the enforcement of a racial hierarchy is chiefly what the cops are concerned with in America. That and protecting the interests of private capital. Um, those are the two things that cops are designed to do: crack black skulls and protect business interests. And here we have an instance of them doing the former. This is exactly what cops are, what cops do by nature. Mr. Crump, the Jackson mayor, did say there were mistakes. He also just said that Dexter Wade's death was a tragic accident. He said there was no malicious intent in failing to notify the family. Okay, so this is where I start to get very suspicious of the interviewer. The mayor is 100% in on this, right? If the police are doing this, no shot the mayor doesn't know about it. And the interviewer getting so defensive when the city officials were mentioned means that they are in on it too. The local news, for how much it has been hollowed out, you do still have to live in the area to be a local news anchor. This person who is giving this interview to this woman who has had two of her family members killed in a nighttime lynching by police is defending those police. There is no chance that they are not complicit in these murders, that they have not known about it for some time now. And for fuck's sake, this woman has lost two very close members of her family, her son and her brother. And this person is like, well, hold on now, don't go assigning blame to the city government. The mayor didn't know about this. Like, come on. This actually reminds me of the interview where I think a diplomat from the Palestinian Authority or the PLO or one of those organizations was on the BBC. And 6 of his family had just been bombed and killed by Israel. And literally the only question they asked him was, do you condemn Hamas? Like, no interest in the actual subject at hand, no interest in actually airing out their side of the story. They're just there to protect the interests that they've been told to protect. And although this is not as severe as that instance, she did not say this 6 times in a row. I don't think. It is the same kind of song and dance at its core. That this person has gone through a devastating loss at the hands of the police and, in no small part, other officials in the city government helping to cover it up. And all they are interested in is saying, well, now hold on, this was a tragic accident for which nobody individually could be held at fault. They don't even name any police officers in this interview. I've read the whole thing before. I've seen the video of this interview. At no point do they ever mention a official or officer in the police department or in the city government by name who could bear some sort of responsibility. Most likely because it would implicate literally everybody. I know I haven't read the entire interview there, but I think the point gets across well enough for me reading I think the first third. That was about a third of that interview was that exchange that I just finished up with. I think to go on would just be to belabor the point. You can read it yourself. This is public broadcasting. It's available on their website for free. Yeah, fuck, man. Just because the U.S. had a black president and because we have a couple laws on the books allowing black people to vote doesn't mean we're in any especially better spot than we were in the 1910s and 20s when the Klan was running around. Not necessarily, anyways. I don't know if I want to make that a segment or not. I already have another segment on the back burner that I'm editing right now. I'm gonna try to be a little bit more smart about how I manage my video editing projects this year as opposed to last year. Try to plan them out a little bit better. After this race, though, I will move on to the video that Matt Pat made about social media. I'll try to approach it like, not sure which video I'm going to go over, like which one 1v3 had in mind. But, you know. Yay. All right, let's find out what Matt Pat. Okay, so the one video is titled Film Theory: How YouTube Broke Your Brain, right? And then the other one is Game Theory: Why Everyone Hates YouTube Shorts and You Should Too. Each of these is is about 17 minutes. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do them both on stream. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see, what are the hashtags here? Film Theory: How YouTube Broke Your Brain. Depression, Matt Pat, Film Theory. Matt Pat, Game Theory, YouTube update. I'll start with the YouTube, just regular YouTube one. I think that seems a little bit more in line with what 1v3 was describing to me, though. Just to hazard a guess. And if not, then I'll do both of them. But first, I got to get this race started. It's going to be a little bit hard for me to set that up while this is going here. I didn't get that in. Ah. Ow. He got me. I had a feeling that something like that was gonna happen. Kudos to him. That was a good green shell throw. I'm now going to... Whoa, what was that? That was weirdly high air that I got off of that one little tree branch there. Fake item box, eh? Ah, nobody hit that. Dang. Oh my god, that's so cute! I love that. The blooper texture, like the ink that it puts on your screen, it's Daisy. And like the Daisy themed flowers, the daisies. Oh shit, he's in a Mega Mushroom. Hey, you have to be careful what line I'm driving in, buddy. Okay, they're doing that thing. I got him. Hit him with that banana. I've been driving pretty good this race, all things considered. I gotta hold this out for dear life. They're definitely gonna get another red shell, and I guarantee one of them at least has a mushroom. Okay, yeah, he had a mushroom. Imagine? Oh, dude. That would have been sick. Alright. Let's get that video ready. Next race. Where's the React Andy window? Here it is. Properties. Film theory. How YouTube broke your brain. There it is. Mr. Beast? Funny Mr. Beast? This is just like Funny Mr. Beast Squid Game, the one time with Funny Mr. Beast. Phenomenal. He is holding a phone and the phone is cracked and it says "I'm dead inside" in the YouTube search bar. Let's take a look about Matt Pat's thoughts on YouTube and how it breaks your brain and depression and some such.
Your favorite YouTuber is killing pop culture. Whether it's me, Mr. Beast, the Game Grumps, Binging with Babish, we are all guilty. In fact, all of YouTube's guilty.
I don't know who Binging with Babish is, but I do know who the other ones are.
And it's not just on this platform either. Netflix, Disney Plus, yeah, them too. Max, Prime Video, absolutely. When it comes right down to it, on-demand viewing of entertainment has slowly eroded away the very fabric of our collective cultural identity. And whether you realize it or not, that's a key reason why many of you watching right now are suffering from depression. That's why anxiety levels are on the rise. It's why America is a political hotbed and why so many people are questioning how they fit into the world right now. It's all because of this.
Behind me are the most expensive cars in the world.
My ability to stream Mr. Beast right now, or The Office.
Today,
that's so true.
Smoking is gonna save lives.
Or Avengers. Or Bewitched.
Ketchup with my oatmeal.
Or Friends. Or Breaking
Wow.
Bad. Or
The
Game
whole
of Thrones,
world at
or
your
Game
fingertips.
Theory, or Film.
Oh, Jesus. Sensory overstimulus. I'm sure that's the point. But that's a really big claim. Wonder how he's going to substantiate it. I'm sure he is. Matt Pat, like, although I've seen some of his theory videos and he doesn't have the greatest track record in terms of predictive power, I do give him the credit of being a very smart guy and understanding social media at the very least. This, you know, should be at the very least interesting and food for thought. But yeah, the right off the bat, what I could see myself agreeing with is if he makes the argument about, like, the social connection that used to come with the consumption of certain forms of media have been eroded away by virtue of them now being consumable in an antisocial fashion, then I would totally agree with that argument. I think that's a very strong argument to make. But like I said, I don't know if he's gonna say that or not. Let me unpause on this straight away here. Again, trying to pause and unpause in spurts because of content ID and stuff.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, where we're part of the problem. So, have you guys seen Mr. Beast's latest video? At this point, that's kind of a legitimate question, because despite being the #1 channel and all of his videos raking in hundreds of millions of views, there's a non-zero chance that, no, you haven't seen it. How about Ryan Trahan,
that's true.
Eric, Mr. Who's the Boss? These guys are consistently some of the most watched creators on the platform right now, drawing in millions of views with each upload. Are they showing up on your homepage? For a big chunk of you, I guess the answer is no. And I know this because
I can kind of see where this is going already. Is that, like, it's so, I don't know, decentralized, I guess, that, like, nobody has any media interest to bond over, at least not that are based on the internet. Or if it does, it's in some nostalgic period that was before the modern iteration of the internet. But yeah, this actually does apply to me, believe it or not. I do not subscribe to Mr. Beast or any of those big YouTube channels. I think the only, like, really big, like, hegemonically large YouTube channel that I subscribe to is Markiplier. And I would actually attribute him as an exception that proves the rule, where there is a genuine, like, subculture around the stuff that Markiplier does, because he's such a fun personality and stuff like that. And he's been around for so long as well. But yeah, ultimately, you know, very strong start, I guess, you know, if this is the ground that he's building on. Yeah. Because, like, you know what it is? Epic pause frame, by the way. I've seen other people make this argument as well. While Mr. Beast and all these other popular YouTubers get a lot of views in the moment, right? They have no cultural staying power. It's a one-off thing that has no, like, relevance to anything that you would be interested in down the road, or current issues, or, like, you know, anything especially, like, artistic and interesting. I don't know. It's hard for me to put to words, especially as I'm driving here, but, like, it's like a content slop. That's what it is. Like, a lot of modern stuff, even if it's not content slop, has some elements of that in it that would necessarily, like, lead it to be not culturally relevant for very long, or have very little cultural impact outside of the moment. I'll get to it straight away, and then I'll continue here. It's a straightaway, kind of.
I do actively watch their stuff, and they're not showing up for me. For some reason, their videos just aren't ones that YouTube's algorithms are recommending to me. Hey, you've noticed this, right? YouTube is different this year. Recommendations feel different. Older videos are cropping up. There's more shorts everywhere. Smaller creators are getting more visibility, and the things that you're being recommended are more tied to what you've searched for or watched recently. I mean, I watched the Hot Ones interview with musician Dave Grohl, and YouTube thinks I'm obsessed with drumming. I'm getting recommended drummer covers and drummer reviews and drummer lore. Did you even know that there was drummer lore? Because let me tell you, there is. Basically, what's going on here is that this year has seen some massive changes on the platform, which merits a whole separate conversation unto itself. But the long and short of it is that my YouTube doesn't look like your YouTube anymore. You know what really proved this one to me? Skibbity Toilet. Seriously. True story. I was recently talking to a big room of Google's higher-ups, and I asked them if they'd ever seen a Skibbity Toilet video. You know, that insanely popular series of viral shorts that's gotten over 35 million subscribers and 12 billion views on their platform in the last 5 months alone. Not a single person in the room had ever heard of it. Regardless of whether you think Skibbity is pure...
Here, let me pause it again, because I have some things to say. I have some thoughts on this. Yeah, I've noticed this too. YouTube does not recommend content anymore based on your subscriptions. It is the weirdest fucking thing to me that the subscribe button on YouTube is basically useless for the viewer now. You know? Like, the subscribe button, it's useful for the creator themselves, but it is no longer a tool that can be reliably used by your average YouTube viewer, such as myself. You know, like, even though I am also a creator, subscribing helps me as a creator, but it does not help me as a viewer, like when I subscribe to somebody. It doesn't make me get their content recommended. There happens to be a decently big overlap between the channels that I subscribe to and the channels that I watch. But that's like, and that's what, you know, gets me the recommendations of channels that I am subscribed to, is because I regularly watch them. As a matter of personal advice, I would recommend that more people do this. Like, you just go through and purge any, like, inactive YouTube subscriptions or channels that haven't posted in a long time or anything like that. You know, that'll help clean up your recommendation feed a bit. But, the core problem here is one of like, the algorithm itself. And, like, it's ultimately, it's kind of dumb and stupid and fucking, like, counterproductive. It's like anti-engaging that you don't get recommendations from your subscribed channels, right? Like, you subscribe to it for a reason. You should be getting videos recommended from them. Even when I have notifications turned on for channels that I subscribe to, I don't get notified. And when I have channels set to personalized or no notifications, I will still get notifications from them. YouTube is on a fundamental level broken. And I don't mean that in the sense of, like, it's too far gone, there's no fixing it. No, I mean broken as in it's like a porcelain cup that you have dropped on the floor and it has shattered. It is no longer functional, but the pieces are all there and you can fix it. Like, the most literal sense of the word broken is what I'm using here.
pure gold or should be flushed down the toilet. It came from that right there. That is telling. And it's not just here on YouTube either. TikTok is really the one that started this whole trend. That's why you always hear people asking,
God,
hey,
I hate
what's
TikTok.
on your TikTok? Because in a world where algorithms are selecting
That's
what
true.
content you see, there's no guarantee that when I play this,
That's suspicious.
you know what I'm referring.
Every copy of Mario 64 is personalized but real. That might be why like that had so much impact when it first became a thing. That creepypasta. For those of you not familiar, the creepypasta basically goes that like, oh, Mario 64 will change itself based on the person playing. Probably the reason that worked as a story is because there's social media that literally does that. In fact, most social media outlets do this. YouTube and Twitter being the two that I use the most often, and that in my mind are the biggest offenders. Because the same way that I don't get content recommended from people that I subscribe to on YouTube, I also don't get tweets in my feed from people that I follow on Twitter, even in the following tab. And I know for a goddamn fact that these people are tweeting a lot.
To. The good of this is that you're likely getting served content that's precisely targeted at your unique viewing habits. The bad is that fewer people are now watching the same things.
Yeah, okay. This is another bit. I'm glad Pat brought this up, is that this model is designed to maximize the lowest common denominator engagement. It's designed to hold your attention for just long enough to click the next thing, because that actually gets more money for YouTube, Google, whatever. It's really regrettable. This is actually a feature of capitalism. Wouldn't you know it? Wow, shocking. The man who's a socialist using this video and it being like, wow, this is a problem inherent to capitalism. But it is the ever growing demand for profit seeking that is certainly present in a lot of market systems, but is especially present in this hierarchical return on investment, like shareholder driven capitalist model. Is the driving force behind what a lot of people on the internet would call enshittification. The making of social media outlets and just websites in general to be worse, because that gets more revenue in the short term. And when you get more revenue in the short term, if you can make that last for a couple of months, that makes your shareholders really happy, and it incentivizes you to keep doing that if you are one of these companies that engages in this. Meanwhile, the alternative of like having a more balanced recommendation system that would in equal parts try to give you new things and also recommend the stuff that you are already subscribed to, things that are literally like written indicators of what your likes and preferences are, that would be better not only for like, that would be better rather than just for short-term engagement. It'd be better for a more like emotionally invested audience, but that stuff is hard to write on a balance book sheet, so companies don't care about that. Once I have a moment here, I will unpause again. That moment is continues to elude me, unfortunately. Oh no, I have to take this route. Oh shit, that actually kind of worked.
And believe it or not,
Yes.
but watching the same things is a critical part of human survival. In
Yes,
short,
it
if you've
is.
been feeling lonely or
Shared
anxious
cultural
or depressed,
references,
or potentially
people.
all three, it's because the world has become increasingly fragmented. And on-demand streaming entertainment is a perfect representative of why you're feeling that way. So let's talk about that, and
Yep.
also
Yeah, shared cultural references and shared memes. Believe it or not, people understanding the same memes is unironically one of the longest standing forces of human social bonding, right? When you have common interests and things that you and your comrades can both talk about and know about, that goes an extraordinarily long way to building community and social connections just in general, which is conversely why it can be so harmful when that isn't present, when everybody's getting such a personally tailored and curated feed that is atomized and individualized to them. The likelihood is way less that they will have anything to talk about with anybody else, and that increases the amount of isolation in the world because it makes it harder to strike up a conversation. You know, like think about this video. This video right here. This was recommended to me by a person that I know because they thought I might find it interesting. But because of the nature of the YouTube algorithm, how many people out there would have also seen or heard of this video? They might have heard of MatPat. They might know who Game Theory is. But like, what is the likelihood that any given piece of content on YouTube, even something as interesting and thought-provoking as this, or like a long-form video essay, or something like that, what is the likelihood that I would be able to go and talk to somebody and make conversation about that content, about that media? It's basically zero, because the cultural impact is so diffused, personalized, and atomized as to be non-existent. Even with somebody as large as Mr. Beast, and like one of those channels that gets tens of millions of views on the daily. I don't know how I just got away with driving like that, but I did.
Let's just get a sense of the scale that we're talking about.
Can't get away with it
Think
forever.
of the biggest shows on television over the last decade. Two that stick out to me are Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones. Absolute darlings of the internet. There is no doubt that these were massive deals.
I haven't seen either of those, by the way. So if he's using these as an example of the contrary to the YouTube algorithm, then I might not be, you know, there might be just a little bit of irony in that I am one of the few people who would not be a part of that crowd. But then again, you know, I guess you could say just as easily that from this side, the exception proves the rule.
Breaking Bad's finale reached 10.3 million people when it originally aired. Meanwhile, Game of Thrones captured 13.6 million, with another 5.7 million watching a rerun or streaming VOD within 24 hours. Those are incredible numbers for a modern show, and yet they're nothing compared to what TV shows saw pre-streaming. For example, let's take a look at Star Trek: The Next Generation. When this show finished in 1994, how many people do you think watched the series finish?
Also, one thing, I don't know if MatPat is going to bring this up, but he didn't bring it up there, and I think it's crucial to bring that up. The viewership numbers of shows like that, of extremely popular media on TV and stuff, were actually disproportionately small relative to their cultural impact. Think about how many people know of the show Breaking Bad, how many people meme about it and whatnot. It is vastly more than 10 million. I will tell you that much right now. And that is because there's a fundamentally different format that you know, the pre-streaming world engaged with in some capacity. I'd be hard pressed to describe the specifics of what that model is. But like 10 million views actually had more of a cultural impact in a non-YouTube setting than in a post-YouTube setting, if that makes sense.
Finale. More than 31 million. A show that, at the time, was considered by many to be niche nerd content.
And also, this is also the case for Star Trek. Even though there are some places where you can watch Star Trek: The Next Generation online, originally it just aired on TV. And the 31 million viewership number is not representative of how many people the show actually reached as a cultural mainstay. There are vastly more than 30 million people that know what Star Trek is and are capable of recognizing it as some sort of cultural touchstone and capable of like making jokes, creating memes, whatever, about things that actually happened in the show, even if they hadn't seen it. Maybe this is just me jumping to the end of the argument that MatPat is maybe taking a little bit longer to make, but
actually tapped into nearly 3 times the viewers of a modern program. And the numbers just get more insane as you look across more popular IP. 52.5 million people watched Friends as it ended.
That's kind of wild. Hey, what's up, 1v3? I'm doing the MatPat video. Unless this isn't the one you thought of, in which case I have it in another tab. Yeah.
Seinfeld got a whopping 76.3 million viewers. I kid you not, people were literally gathered at Times Square to watch the finale together. Cheers was sent off with 80.4 million viewers, and MASH ended with nearly 106 million people, making it the single most watched broadcast in American history that wasn't a Super Bowl, a president resigning, or a moon landing. Sure, Mr. Beast can...
You know how big of cultural touchstones these are? I've seen MASH. I have watched that show. That show aired in the 1970s, and it was about the 1950s. It was about the Korean War. I've watched that show because it still plays on television, you know? And, you know, obviously I know what most of these other shows are. I haven't watched most of them. Yeah. Like, even somebody like me, I'm like, I'm one of the people that you would be able to fairly levy the criticism, like, hey, you should get out more. Yes, I should, and I'm working on that. But, like, even me in my having not gotten out as much, I have seen MASH. I know about that show. I know what it is, what it's about. I've seen episodes of it, and I recognize it as a cultural frame of reference, not only for a generation of people, but, like, for an entire nationality. It was like an icon of American anti-war sentiment in the 1970s and I think it was just late 1970s. You know, because that was when Vietnam was happening.
Can pull 100 million viewers no sweat. But that's talking global numbers across the span of a couple days, with ads that are randomly decided by an algorithm based on your tastes and randomly placed throughout the video based on how you tend to watch videos. By contrast, these massive TV moments were people all at the same time, all in the US, all watching an event unfold together in real time. It was scheduled into their lives. Streets were empty. Everyone was fed the same commercials at the exact same time. And when it ended, everyone was released as one big unit. So afterwards, when I said, "The tribe has spoken," or "What's up?" or "Eat my shorts," you got it. You knew the references I was citing, and you were able to respond back in kind. It was a shared cultural lingo that you could reasonably assume most people you talked to had also been exposed to. But think about what that means in the age of on-demand video, in the age of YouTube, of TikTok and Netflix. What can you rely on people to actually know? That's just a theory?
Yeah, okay, so MatPat was just going a longer route to make the same argument that I was making about these shows, is that they represent massive cultural touchstones that actually exercise an amount of influence disproportionately larger than the amount of viewers they drew in the moment, even though they drew a massive amount of viewers in the moment. This guy's gonna throw a banana back, I just know it. Oh, or maybe not. He might just be more interested in maintaining first than screwing over a second. I can't blame him, really. Holy, am I gonna get first because of this? That would be wild. No, okay, almost. Also, I should ask as well, is this the video you were thinking of? Or is it this game theory video about YouTube Shorts?
Maybe, but for as big as our channels are, we've always been niche. Like, comment, and subscribe. Sure, but it's also too broad. It's too vague. That's on everything from a beauty vlog to a locksmithing how-to. It says nothing about who you are.
One of, but not the. I can find that one. Just give me a sec. Okay. I might make this a double feature then, if you know, if there's like another one that you were thinking of.
And of course, this isn't only affecting TV. Avengers Endgame was the last big cultural movie moment to happen in theaters. And now, just 4 or 5 years later, the pop culture encyclopedia has largely run dry.
Fuck, you know what? That's kind of true. Avengers Endgame was kind of the last heyday of that before the streaming era. Because COVID happened the year after Endgame hit theaters. I think for me, it seems like the only massive cultural reference, right? The cultural touchstones that we're talking about, right? They revolve around a certain ubiquity of experiencing the media in more or less the same context, and being able to talk not just about that media, but about the experience and the context in which you watched it. The one thing I can think of after Endgame was the Spider-Verse movie that came out in 2022. Okay. I'm good, I'm good. Okay. This is hectic. Alright. I'm taking the weirdest lines. Hold on, let me get a box. Yeah. Give me that! No! I got stuck. This race is so wild. Wait, first places are just right up there? That's kind of wild. Need to exercise whatever advantage I can get my hands on here. Kind of weird. Alright. Here's to hoping I don't drive like shit this lap. That'd be preferable. Ah, okay. Shock. Makes sense.
IP like Marvel and Star Wars were among the last holdouts of shared cultural touchstones, but because of how
That
they've
is
been
true, I
strip
think.
mined for content, their importance
Yep.
and relevance have largely been on the downswing, with ever-decreasing box office returns. And what's risen up to replace them? Nothing.
Damn it.
Well, nothing except the Taylor Swift Eras Tour streaming.
You know what's interesting? I think Star Wars had one tiny resurgence in like the popular the complete popular lexicon with Andor. Like the show was so good that everybody was talking about it. But like I think if anything that goes to prove Matt Pat's point, but that to reconstruct the kind of cultural language that shared media used to be, the bar is so high. Like Across the Spider-Verse was literally like had academics, anarchists, leftists, theorists, and social scientists of all stripes poring over it for the themes, motifs, writing, and political undertones that were present in it, as well as its like heavily implied trans characterization and things like that. This is the one you meant? Okay. And then with Andor, same thing. Everybody that was invested in these like very deep, very complex subjects, you know, social scientists, theorists, political junkies, whatever, video essayists, poured in to talk about Andor because it met that high bar. But like that bar, that's almost impossibly high. You know, like it used to be media that wasn't even especially good could be a cultural touchstone because it was mainstream and it was in a central place at the same time every time. And it was like, it wasn't this algorithm driven content, such as the case with Friends, a show that I would argue is not that good. And there are certainly a couple other shows. Not everybody agrees that all of these shows that were like mainstay cultural touchstones were good, but they still know about them and they know they exist because they were so popular either when they were airing or like shortly after or whatever, and they were all like airing in the same place at the same time, whatever. You know, there's so much more of a wall that has to be breached now. You know, the wall of like the algorithm and whatever, if that makes sense. Ironically, the accessibility of content presents the greatest obstacle to people accessing in a shared cultural sense content. And by content I just mean like media. You know, the increasing accessibility of media ironically is the biggest thing that is preventing people from accessing media in a social context. Because now it's accessible in a non-social context, an individual in heavily individualized context. Look, this isn't, and to be clear, this isn't me necessarily arguing that we should return to tradition or whatever. I think it is definitely good that media, good media and all that has become easier to access, for people to watch shows that they enjoy, movies that they enjoy, and things like that. But it's a very complex genie and bottle situation. This is a historical trend that bears with it all sorts of different problems and implications, but it also represents such an upgrade as far as our leisure time to what we had before, that you can't reasonably be expected to live without it now that you have it. You know? Other three were about Disney Plus YouTube Shorts and how all YouTube videos are becoming the same with things like every worlds and stuff like that. Okay, I got you. I'm trying to see and learn like interesting new things, but after I left my phone on a meme compilation short, now I'm getting drowning that Gen Alpha shit. Yeah, that's like the consequence of algorithm content. Have a mushroom. There's a shortcut up here. I'm probably gonna take it. Yeah. Another mushroom. Honestly, I think it is my preference to not be in first right now. God dang it. Although it would not be my preference to be in sixth on the last lap. Yeah, that'd be good. But again, you know, I'm not putting hardly any stock in these races, apart from how I'm driving. And I think I've been driving pretty well, more or less. And I'm getting sixth. Okay. Let's keep going.
In theaters, but again, why is that such a big cultural touchstone? Well, because she's one of the only artists to have made it big before this on-demand explosion, with albums dropping in 2006, 2008, 2010, and 2012, all before Spotify came in and solidified.
There are 70 videos made on a meme of a G head sticking out of a toilet making billions of views, and who have barely added anything to the story. Yeah, you know, the Skibbity toilet Gmod. I'm all for the Gmod like meme experience and all that, but like the fact that content is increasingly reaching the lowest common denominator in terms of length and like originality and things like that, just by means of the incentives that are at play in producing that, does a lot to harm the cultural lexicon of what we can like collectively acknowledge as a shared thing. You know, because like plenty of people know about the G man with his head sticking out of the toilet, right? I know about it. I haven't hardly even seen any of that stuff. But like beyond that, how much do people really know? Certainly by this point, it's been a thing for a couple of years now. You know, 2 or 3 years that's been a popular meme, but there hasn't been that much added to it, which is strange considering how many people know about that meme relative to other memes that have had a lot of stuff added to them. You know, it's like cultures and subcultures and stuff. Like we're witnessing the deconstruction. I don't want to say decay because that's so much of a loaded term, but like if nothing comes to replace the structures that were there before of constructing subcultures, then this would be like the decay of those subculture mechanisms. You know.
Music as the on-demand entertainment source it is today.
And to be clear also, because I recognize that might sound a little bit sus, this isn't me saying like G-Man's head's coming out of the toilet, Gen Alpha is degenerate, the West has fallen, or anything like that. This is like this same meme in a different time, with different like materials, social structures, and incentives surrounding it, would produce a better lexicon and climate around it. It's like nothing to do with the generational problems of one generation or the other. It's the system surrounding the production of this stuff.
As a result of getting a foothold early, she's been able to maintain relevance through consistent releases ever since, leading us to today, where she's one of the few music acts that have been able to achieve such huge critical mass and cross-generational boundaries. But after Tay-Tay, who's next? Who rises up? What musical acts have had the same sort of cultural relevance? Internationally, I'd say K-pop comes pretty close, but the audience...
It's not even 1 year old, actually? Hold on. Wait, I don't want to show this on stream. Let me go to the window where it's like... age. Wait. How recent is the Skibbity toilet meme? February 2023. Okay, so just under a year. Never mind, you're right. Yeah, okay. Although, I think my point stands, even then. If a meme has been around for 11 months, then usually there would be some kind of expansion or sub-meme created from it by now. In fact, 2 or 3 times at least. But yeah, that doesn't seem to be the case with the Skibbity Toilet Man, a G-Man coming out of the toilet at you. Dr. Freeman.
Audience is now too divided for any one artist to attain that much of your attention. And so I can't just turn to the person next to me and ask if they stan Kim Tae-young or make a casual reference to color-changing soup and just expect them to know what I'm talking about. Now, on one hand...
Average Matt Pat conversation. This is how he talks to everyone in real life. I have met him. I am good friends with him personally. You cannot disprove anything that I'm saying. He is exactly like this all the time.
This rise of on-demand viewing is a good thing. Theoretically, you're being shown things that actually interest you. Videos, movies, games, and music that are all tailored to your specific individual wants and needs, instead of what a corporate board of directors in Burbank, California deemed to be the next popular thing. But because we don't know what anyone else has seen, is listening to, is playing, quoting, or memeing, we lose the pop in pop culture. At the end of the day, you don't have popular culture if nothing is actually popular with everyone. But why does that matter? Can't we all just live in our happy little bubbles and...
Yeah, I am actually glad that he presented the notion that, like, look, this is kind of a genie in a bottle scenario, and like, on the one hand, there is something good about the fact that, like, now you're not just being fed content necessarily. Like, there's still problems in that respect as well, but like, you can now tailor your feed more, so you'll only really see things that you are interested in. You don't get as much of that fluff that's just there because it's there. Although even then, there are some pretty severe flaws with determining what a person is interested in, where you get a lot of like dumb YouTube shorts or TikToks or whatever, like you mentioned earlier, based on one thing that you watched one time,
Carry on? Well, it turns out that at the end of the day...
It's almost like the algorithm like shows you things that will hold your interest rather than show you things that you're actively interested in, if that makes sense. Like, there's a difference between that. I swear you can trick off that.
Today, that bubble doesn't end up being very happy. The reason is that popular culture supplies us with a lot more than hummable tunes and weird euphoria clips where everyone's crying. It supplies us with connection. One of the easiest ways to connect with someone that you don't know is to find a piece of IP that you both know something about. Wait a minute, you
Sonic
also
the
watched
Hedgehog.
the finale of Seinfeld? Well, hello! Oh, you saw Infinity War? Why didn't they just go for the head? You listened to Taylor Swift too? That's awesome. What era's your favorite? But as pop culture becomes more individualized,
all good examples.
The group we feel that we can truly connect with becomes smaller and smaller.
Yes.
Does that sound like
yes.
I'm overstating the...
And you know what that is? You know what that actually is? I'm gonna like keep it fucking 100 with you. That is the atomization of late stage capitalism. I talked about this a little bit, I think last stream or the stream before, where like one of the reasons for the isolation that we're now seeing is things are so like tailored on the margins to individual interests, but also like to the ideology of hyper-individualism, that it's almost like anything beyond the individual need not be considered. Like there are so many things, so many structures and infrastructures and superstructures that have ceased to function as a means of collecting humans and more so exists as a way of categorizing humans. Again, this is like... atomization is a very complex subject, but there, this is a trend that exists far and wide, not just on YouTube, not just on social media, but even in the way that we build cities. And in the way that we organize economies. People are getting more isolated because the means of forming social connections, either around cultural touchstones or shared business connections or shared community ties, are becoming fewer and further between as everything gets more put on an like algorithm-driven platform or whatever it may be, And all of that is because companies that manage services and whatever through which people would engage with each other are now taking the personal engagement out of it and instead introducing an algorithm that will substitute the answer for you instead of you like talking to people in order to find that answer. Does that make sense? It like, to give a parallel example to this, YouTube giving you algorithm recommended content that is personalized to you, rather than TV shows that were on at, in the same place at the same time that everybody could engage with, is kind of like how now, if you want to get a babysitter for your kid, you would contact a service online and just look at a babysitting board and just click on a person that you think looks good, instead of, asking around the neighborhood like people used to. Although, again, look, I think we're at that point now. If you really want to get into this phenomenon, if you really want to learn about it, because I'm by no means an expert on it, and I'm not like qualified to talk about it as though I am an expert. Please look up some research on this, on the phenomenon of atomization and hyper-individualism. It's a very interesting phenomenon and very, very massive in terms of the problems it represents for mental health and the stability of communities in general.
Importance of these
anyway,
connections.
back to the
Well,
video.
it turns out the fracturing of pop culture platforms coincides with a huge rise in feelings of loneliness and isolation in our society, especially here in the US, where we've already placed a high value on the idea of independence. A Gallup poll from 1980
there we go.
showed that 20%.
Damn, MatPat made my point in a way more succinct way than I could make it. Thank you for that. Yeah, the hyper-individualism is leading to this, like, increasing loneliness, because it's like everybody's becoming an island in their own world. It's like that you're not connected to anything else, which is
of the population felt lonely. That same poll in 2020 reported that 36% of people, more than one,
which is an
in three,
alarming
was
increase,
grappling with some form of serious loneliness. But that was 2020, right? That was the pandemic. You'd think that coming back from the pandemic would have improved the situation. But polls in 2023, 2 years after lockdowns have ended in most places, they show that loneliness continues to climb, with some studies reporting 60% of respondents feeling isolated, lonely, or struggling to make personal connections. And these stats aren't just like, oh, that's really sad. It's an
Suddenly in chat, MatPat answered, "You're welcome, Y2K." Yeah, true. Yeah, he's in my chat spiritually right now. He's in fact stream sniping me from beyond time and space as he was making this video. How did I not get hit by that? Okay, give me just 1 second and then I will resume this video.
epidemic that disproportionately affects people under the age of 25. That's not to
Yes!
say older generations haven't dealt with mental health or loneliness. They do, frequently, but it often goes underdiagnosed in those populations. That said, the statistics overwhelmingly show that the vast majority of younger people are dealing with loneliness on a regular basis. And they're, of course, also the people that have spent their lives in this fractured pop cultural world with fewer anchor points that connect them to other people. Instead, the only things that unite us now,
That bomb was influenced by the Mr. Matt himself. True, he's always looking out for me right now.
Things that are truly able to cut through the noise are the tragedies. In an absence of fun moments like a new Star Wars movie or an Avengers film or a new concert, bad news is the thing that rises to the top of every social media feed. Natural disasters, shootings, war, political upheaval. And while it isn't...
Yeah, you know what? This is probably... How do I back up from this a second? Because there is, like, something I want to introduce here. Economic instability and insecurity, as well as social isolation, can radicalize people. MatPat is getting into the pipeline. We are currently looking at the inside of the pipeline that leads people to political radicalization and activation, right? No more shared cultural touchstones. Well, what's something that everybody has in common? The politics of their country and the world we live in. You know, that's why you see a lot of people doomer posting on Twitter. People who aren't even like very avid followers of politics or like interested in political philosophy or whatever, doomer posting about World War III, because that is a shared cultural touchstone that everybody will see and recognize and be like, oh, haha, there is a lot of political instability in the world right now, and it feels like at any given moment a regional war could break out. That's something that everybody can recognize, and that's having to fill the vacuum of like media that's no longer there. You know, in addition to it being like people sort of turning to try to get answers for previously existing economic insecurities, it's now becoming an outlet for people to try to explore newfound insecurities that weren't there before, things that were introduced by like the COVID pandemic, or you know, stuff like that.
Generations. But okay, I hear you saying that it's not fair to blame all our loneliness and isolation on these platforms. Like the fact that my TikTok doesn't serve me the same goalie cat clip yours does makes the world a sadder place. No, of course not. It's not only the platforms, but pop culture is part of a much bigger splintering that only looks worse the more you dig in. Pop culture obviously isn't the only way we relate to other people. There are lots of ways that people share interests and feel like we live in a society. And these ways are often listed out in various identity
oh my god!
Made across history. Sports, religion, your job, your ethnic background, maybe your political views. Any of these things might be enough to bring you together with someone else. The problem is that we're losing ground in these areas as well. All of them. For instance, looking at religious service attendance, it peaked in 1960 and it's been on the decline for the last 30 years. In fact, it dropped 10%.
Yeah. I have some thoughts of my own about you know, religion as a concept, but it is also the case that religious institutions in local communities served actually a more secular function, where they would be community gathering places independent of their religious connotations. You know, the fact that like Sunday service and whatever existed is not just significant for its religious like connotations. I think the religious part of that is cringe. But the fact that like the fact that it was a meeting place where everybody would go in an organized fashion every week to talk and participate in certain common rituals of like societal engagement and whatever was very much a like that is a function that every society actually needs to perform if it wants to remain stable and active. So you have to have those what are called third places. You know, and with jobs becoming less and less socially viable, with religion being on the decline in more ways than one, that's a more multifaceted issue. And with the antisocial city planning that we see, especially in the United States, you know, third places being less and less common, people are, you know, becoming increasingly desperate.
Since 2012 alone. What about our shared love of the good old US of A? Patriotism in the US has also plummeted across the last 10.
That one's based, though. The fact that American patriotism has plummeted, that's based, I think. Nationalism is cringe, even though it can represent like a cultural touchstone for a lot of people. I think this is better than not. Although it is definitely like, this is without a doubt a component part of the social isolation that MatPat is analyzing here. But I would actually attribute this in equal parts as a product of this isolation rather than a cause of it. Because when people get disillusioned as to the existing forces in their life, they tend to reject the narratives that would assert everything is okay when it's not, if that makes sense. Like, a lot of people might turn to politics, become disillusioned with the way that America conducts itself in domestic and international politics, and lose patriotism that they once had, or, like, just not be particularly patriotic, because, like, what do I have to love my country for? What has my country done for me? Not a fucking thing, you know? And that's more, like, that's more resulting from the isolation than causing it, if that makes sense. You know?
10 years, most significantly among younger people. On top of being the prime demographic to feel lonely and
Yeah, there we
isolated,
go.
young people on platforms like YouTube and TikTok are also more likely to be politically informed, and they've become
Yeah, there you go.
cynical about their political identity. In 2016, almost 40% of people under 29 reported feeling proud to be an American, and then they hung that
Wow.
lyric by Lee Greenwood. Checking back in
That's
2023,
true.
that number is just 18%. So, okay, not really
Cool.
connected on religion or patriotism, but hey, you can always meet people at your job. Oh,
Just
never
kidding.
mind.
No.
The workplace has been completely upended.
Oh, there
in
we
the
go.
last 5
He's
years.
talking about
It's
the
just in
workplace
time
now.
for Gen Z to enter the workforce and look for jobs, but maybe those jobs are remote jobs.
Yeah, that's me, by the way. The guy that, like, what he's talking about, like, oh, now Gen Z is having to look for jobs in an antisocial job climate. That's me that he's talking about. I'm looking for jobs in this fucking job, like, market. In this fucking antisocial job climate. I've even heard horror stories. This is going to be a shout out to another YouTube channel, Adam Something, who makes cool video essays about infrastructure and stuff, where, like, you would be, I think at his old job, you'd have to ask him about this, but you would be penalized for socializing with your colleagues. Like, social engagement was not just not really a thing in the workplace. It was actively discouraged because it was perceived that, like, oh, that would detract from your workflow and make you a less productive worker. He was going to watch your video on this over and over again. Yeah, this is definitely going to be a segment. I can't not make this a segment. There's too much substance here that I think, like, would be good for people to acknowledge and engage with, like, as a, you know, subject matter. Because this is probably right now is as politically relevant as it will ever be. Even if things only get worse, like, this is kind of like the beginning of this phenomenon here. We're still very early on into the era that MatPat is talking about with the social media isolation and atomization. That only started in the mid to late 2010s, and it only really became a recognizable thing when COVID started in 2020. That's only 4 years ago.
Jobs. Maybe they're in person. Maybe it's halvesies. Maybe it's the gig economy. Maybe they'll strike. And all the while, there'll be a ton of inflation, and Logan Paul is going to be telling them they should be investing in crypto. 70% of millennials and Gen Z workers are considering quitting their jobs as I speak. And high percentages of Gen X workers in fields like tech and healthcare are feeling burned out due to work and finances. People's identities are no longer associated with the place they work because people don't view those places as reliable or helpful anymore. They feel financially insecure and underpaid. Enough so that basically half of all Zoomers, Millennials, and Gen Xers all have themselves a side hustle. My parents, by contrast, have worked in the same job for over 40 years. So for them, their job is a core part of their identity. But for young people now, they're disillusioned with corporate culture.
By the way, this exact thing, the fact that the job market has changed so much and that, like, jobs no longer represent any sort of stable economic opportunity that they once did, this is exactly why I don't talk to my parents about work. Because they want to help. Believe me, they do. I have a good relationship with my parents. They love me very much. You know, it's good to know that, but they are completely ill-equipped to help me in the current job climate, having, like, engaged with exactly the job culture that MatPat described as being characteristic of a lot of Zoomers and Millennials' parents. Meanwhile, we're dealing with probably the most antisocial job market that we've ever seen in, at least in recorded American history. You know, although there could be some crises in, like, the 18th century that are less well documented that might be worse, but who knows?
And mostly just want to get out. So your job's not making you any positive connections these days. What then does that leave us with? Well, according to identity theory, it leaves us with things like extreme political views or
yes, there you go. And now we've reached the end of the pipeline. Political radicalization is what people, what happens on a massive scale, by the way. There are people who, through individual motives, would become interested in politics on their own without necessarily having any of these socially isolating factors. But the necessary endpoint of this social isolation is the pushing of people into politics, and in a regrettable way, in a violent way. Now that I say it, I'll head out and rewatch this when I have the time. Well, I'm glad that I'm interesting enough for that.
Extreme viewpoints on top.
Because see what MatPat was getting at there before he said extreme political views, you know what that leaves you when your job doesn't provide you with any social outlet, when your media consumption doesn't provide you with any social outlet, where your neighborhood doesn't provide you with any social outlet, when even things that are almost specifically tailored to be social opportunities do not leave you with any meaningful social outlet. You know what you have? Nothing. And you know what people who have nothing, turn to? Very extreme measures. And a lot of people view politics as like extreme. Like a lot of people view that as sort of not kosher for casual conversation. And so like desperate times call for desperate measures, people get into politics. And a lot of people become radicalized as a result of this isolation. This is how incels are made. This is how neo-Nazis are made. This is how communists are made. All sorts of like different parts of the political spectrum are made and broken by these social phenomena.
Topics like gender or extreme stances on race. All these areas where we've historically worked to break down barriers, improve communication, and at least attempt to work together. Instead, walls are now getting built back up as we attempt to define ourselves by how we're different from the other side. The scope of all of those things goes well beyond this little old theory on the internet, but suffice it to say, these are areas...
Yeah, I mean, obviously, MatPat is not like a political creator, so I didn't really expect him to take like a hard stance one way or the other, although he did say racism is bad, which is very based of him. Thank you, King. It is certainly the case that like for some people, politics could be like an outlet just to vent frustration in a crude fashion, but for a lot of people, whether they acknowledge it or not, even for like people who are trying to vent their frustrations and whatever, politics represents like the ultimate way for them to potentially fix their problem. Think of how many people, like, you think of the president of your country, the government of your country, they're like really fucking powerful, and like they have the authority and the ability to do something about dire circumstances in people's lives. Why wouldn't people turn to politics when all else has failed them? It's only natural in this in that course of action.
Where a large percent of the population also feels divided or isolated or scared and doesn't feel able to connect with those on the other side of the issue. So the TLDR is that if you feel like it's a really lonely time out there and it's bizarre...
To be fair, it does not help that, Nazis on the far right literally do not view queer people as human and want to kill you if you are queer. That doesn't help in finding social connections and like, I don't know, having humanizing and shared cultural experiences. But, I digress.
Really hard to make connections with your fellow humans on any basic level. You're right. We are more fractured and divided than ever everywhere we turn. And it's because the
atomization
institutions around us that used to give us connection and identity are crumbling. So what then?
Not only crumbling. This is the first, I think, slight issue that I've had with like... Actually, no, you know what? This is a nitpick more than anything. I don't want to take any credit away from MatPat because holy shit, a lot of effort went into this, clearly. Not only are the institutions crumbling, some of them are as rock solid as they have ever been from a financial perspective. The problem is the fundamental nature of these institutions is changing from one of social collection to social atomization. All these institutions that MatPat was talking about, the workplace, the neighborhood, the church, all this stuff previously had been designed in such a way to bring people to a common place to socialize. Now, the design of these institutions is being altered literally to break people apart. The institutions themselves might not be crumbling per se, but their purported purpose certainly is getting lost in the sauce or changed for the worse.
Do we do? In a time when we really want to feel connected with something, what's the thing that'll help make us feel connected? How do you possibly beat a series of systems that keep us siloed? Well, ironically, it's in the place where we started this episode, stories. Whether that's in YouTube videos, movies, TV, video games, wherever, hearing other people's genuine stories about what they're going through makes us feel connected to them. It helps us understand that other people are going through what we're going through. It helps us to feel like we're not alone. They help us feel seen. One of the most popular popular movies of the last year has been Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Hugely,
I didn't see that one, by the way.
inexplicably popular. Except, what's it about? Well, the theme is identity. It's about being lonely. It's about finding your place and your relationship with someone else when the identity you thought you had crumbles away. Huh, go figure. Kind of matches what we're talking about.
Topical.
Or how about the biggest movie of the year?
Maybe I should see that.
You know, the story about a person, a doll.
By the way, so many people had so many good things to say about Barbie. There's like the rare example of movies that get released in theaters are like validate exactly what MatPat is saying here. And like I said, with the media becoming smarter over time, I think, at least to my recollection, you know, that presents more things that people can engage with, especially because the problems that we're dealing with are becoming more and more complex as things go on. Or becoming, like, the complex stuff is becoming much closer to the surface than we might have previously thought. You know, Barbie, obviously a film that is known for being, like, full of feminist critiques of patriarchy and liberal capitalism and things like that.
Thing in a world where their role used to be clear-cut, but now she doesn't know what her place is anymore, what her identity is, which has left her feeling, say it with me now, lonely and isolated.
Yep.
And she finds herself in the end by being a woman. And there's that big speech in there about how hard it is to be a mother and a woman, and how there's so many expectations. Oh my gosh, it's almost like this whole movie is relatable. The stories that now cut through the noise don't shy away from this splintered feeling. Instead, they face those feelings head on. Authenticity and honesty about the one universal that we all feel, loneliness, is actually what's helping to unite us. YouTube, which has been the world's most frantic viewing experience for the last 3 years, is just now fully finding itself swinging in the opposite direction. Simple conversations with Moist Critical about current events, human experiences like eating with Eddie Burback and Ted Nivison at Margaritaville's, the lonely man's cuisine. Investing in human stories is feeling refreshing again. Even Mr. Beast has openly talked about pulling back from his ADHD-inducing editing style to a narrative format where he sounds more human and allows an actual story to unfold in his videos, because that's what's keeping people engaged,
good. That's
rather
awesome.
than just more and more suitcases of money opening up every 10 seconds. Will this instantly solve all our problems? The root cause that makes us feel so divided? Have us feeling great and making lots of friends and have hair-braiding sleepovers soon? No, definitely not. But there's a recognition out there that talking to real people, telling real stories, and being honest about where we are, it pays off. While we're in this phase of splintered existence, seek out the real great stories that feel honest to where you are right now. Don't be afraid to talk about what it's like to be lonely.
Sorry,
and
I'm not
do it in
reacting very
increments
much.
that are longer than 3.
I agree with, by the way, I agree with everything that MatPat is saying in this section. Not super surprising. I've agreed with like most everything he said in the video, and I think this is an incredibly incisive, interesting, and like pointed video for the year 2024, and as well as, you know, 2023, the year this was presumably made. Yeah, late 2023. And I'm also driving, so it's hard to react. Please do not content ID me over this. I mean nothing but respect, and I'm trying to do my thing like everybody else on the internet. I got fits on it.
3 seconds. You could even go out on a limb and not set it to a trending sound. It's not.
I think, okay, actually, I did want to say something about the like more human-centric content that is becoming more and more popular on YouTube. People are emotionally invested in the well-being of other people, whether that be for the better or for the worse. Like whether people are good and want to see other people's lives being good, or whether people are evil and want to see the harm of others. People like to hear the details and like see a vivid story or hear a vivid story and whatever. And that's led to a lot of people engaging with like long form content, you know, the rise of podcasts and whatnot, video essays and things like that. And I think to some measure, there are critiques that I can make into every fucking thing on the planet, but I think that presents an opportunity, like MatPat was saying, for people to bring their attention back to other people. It's sort of like almost like a rejection of atomization. The development of parasocial relationships online to content creators is an attempt to develop community where none yet existed, to develop those shared cultural touchstones in some form or another. And although that's obviously in some way that's like it's kind of a weak, desperate attempt by all of us to recreate, excuse me, institutions that do exist but no longer serve the function that they are supposed to, and no longer serve the function that we want them to, because we want our lives to be better. That's a pretty human tendency.
Guaranteed that everyone else you know will see the same things you will, watch the same movies you will, play the same games, or have the same experiences, but the important thing is that by watching and sharing stories
Whoa! I landed on that guy.
We'll start a new pop cultural trend built on what it means to be human, with all the ups and downs that entails. And you know what? It's not a bad place to start. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut.
That was a whole lot more than a film theory. But I did enjoy it. I'm definitely not going to have time for any of the other MatPat videos. Honestly, I feel like that was a good encapsulation of the whole issue. I don't know if I would get anything new out of the other videos that MatPat made on a similar subject, You might even say that this collection of videos is like Das Kapital, and that this video is just like Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto, the readable pamphlet version. I am very smart. Thank you. Do I have any closing thoughts? I think now would be a good time for me to offer those if I do have them. But I don't know. I think if nothing else, this video is so definitely worth the consideration, right? Like, this video is a really good way of describing some of the social problems that we're experiencing, excuse me, in a post-COVID world, where all of the social tendencies of humanity have sort of been hollowed out by atomization over time, right? And that's not good. Because humans are social animals. We need that interaction. Whether you're an introvert, extrovert, whatever, you need the companionship of other people in order to survive. Otherwise you get depression and a whole host of things. Is there anything I can neatly wrap up with? Let me think. Because I'm going to end this segment pretty soon. I don't know. I think for what MatPat did here, this could have been a fucking master's thesis in sociology. That's how good this video was, I think. Very smart encapsulation of the issue, I think. Let's turn that off and go back to this Twitch window here. Here we go. And yeah, you know what? Here, I'll address this last part, this final part, to somebody who presumably is afflicted by many of the social problems that are present and that MatPat discusses in that video. Know that even when you are at your lowest, when you are at your most lonely, you are not alone. There are millions upon millions of people in the world experiencing some version of the same problem as you. And I guarantee that if they knew you were out there, they would want you to keep going. They would want you to have a good life. And I know it's hard to self-talk, to self-justify that. But know that things do eventually get better. Even if you can't immediately see it. Making friends is hard. And I'm not going to undersell that or anything. I've had a hard time with it. A lot of people have had a hard time with it as of late, and that is literally because the entire world is stacked against you. Maybe not you specifically, but if your mission here, if your objective is I want to have friends and I want to be living a mentally healthy life, the entire deck will be stacked against you at all times. That is the world that we currently live in. That is the degree of atomization we're now dealing with, and it takes some pretty extraordinary circumstances in order to overcome that. Is that kind of a downer note to finish this segment on? Maybe. But I want to stress that like the world is worth fighting for, I think, is the thing. And it's possible to take that social isolation and come away with positive lessons that, like, you know, the politics that Matt Pat mentioned, that like these lack of social connections can push people into political engagement where they wouldn't have it otherwise. These are, like, the levers of power are ways to make people's lives better, and we should be using them. And it's possible for that to go wrong. It's also possible for that to go right. Whatever the situation, do not lose hope. Or better yet, do not have hope in the first place. Do not have expectations that can be hollowed out, kicked aside, stamped on, disappointed, and ruined, because that will not make things better. And like, at the end of the day, life is an ongoing project. And I think we all owe it to ourselves to see it through to the end and do with it what we could. And at the end of the day, look, if you tried, you tried, and nobody else can expect any more of you, and, you know, should be at peace with that. Even though that's, like, it's very hard to accept, but, yeah. So, I guess that sounds really sappy, and, you know, ultimately, it just amounts to, like, hang in there, because, you know, you matter to me. And you matter to Matt Pat, too. Even though neither of us probably knew you existed until you, like, I don't know, left a comment on a video or whatever. Even though I might still not know that you existed, I do give a shit. And like, many people give a shit. So, just keep going. Just keep going. Although, ultimately, I'm not a therapist, so. Future me, cut it there. And, once again, just hang in there, folks. I see. Ah, perfect. Did I get 5th? I might have gotten 5th. I did. Interesting. Oh, what a trip. What a trip indeed. I'm sorry if that was really heavy subject matter for anybody in chat that was watching. It's very difficult to engage with that, especially because it's like, yeah, our whole society is completely fucked. But, you know, in my mind, that actually provides me a bit of comfort knowing that, like I said, if you want good things for yourself, the entire world is stacked against you. Regardless of the wishes and support of any one person. You know, the institutions are designed for various things, but in their current form, they more or less exist to prevent people from doing that which they will, in relation to, like, making friends with other people and whatnot. Obviously, there are good and bad reasons for every institution existing. Some more so than others. But look, I don't know what Blood is waffling about at this point. Life is complicated. Society is complicated. Capitalism is complicated. And all of these things have a lot of problems. Yeah. Eh. Ooh, DS Bowser Castle. This would probably be the last race, maybe? I might do one more after this, depending on how long or short this one is. Was that a bomb? Did I just narrowly avoid a bomb going off? Ow. Shit. That ain't good. Everybody got owned by that wall. Glad it wasn't just me. Oh, okay. No, he took the box I was gonna take. Dang it. Ben. What's up, Ben? Got him. No, I'm dead. Okay. I'm saving this mushroom, I think. Or maybe I am not. Hmm. Very interesting. I did that section right! Yay. Okay. Delightfully devilish, Seymour. What? I didn't think I was doing that! I could have sworn I landed on that platform the right way. Oh well. Dude, no way. Everybody got target shock there? That is wild. Okay. Whew. Ooh! Mushroom, get me out of here. Okay. This works. This works. I'm content with this outcome here. Alright. I'm good so far. Okay. Panic. I might be fucked. I'm not sure. I had to wipe the sweat off my brow for that one. I'll do one more. I'll do one more. Even though that one was decently long. That was a really good race. So. I drove really well that race too, I think. Whew. You know, that I think the Map Hat video is going to be. I'm not sure if that's going to be the exception or the norm for the kind of video review, video react stuff that I do on upcoming streams. I don't know. Because I don't want to fall into the XQC trap. Wow, chat, that's crazy. Chat, is this real? Chat, is this real? You know, granted, not that I think I will. I easily doubled or tripled the length of that video just by me offering commentary, which I think adds something of value. But I guess my focus would have been more on like rhetoric in a debate setting. I don't know. Look, I guess if people want, I can do both of those things. I can review debates. I can watch video essays, just hopefully ones that are not too long. Anything that's longer than 20 minutes, please think twice before recommending that to me, because I don't know if I can deal. Unless it's a debate, in which case I will happily look at it. Poor little mock bike self getting bullied on the racetrack. I'm gonna chain this, I think. Or maybe not. Sure. Okay. Yay. No, I missed the POW dodge. What? For a second, I thought that red shell was just gonna sail right past me. That was kind of bizarre. Ooh, I like this. Alright, I'm gonna go off that ramp. Hopefully nobody has a shock. I really hope nobody has a shock right now. I'm gonna go off this ramp and then spam it. Just go. Just go. Go, 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 go. I drove really bad that last corner, but I got third. I think my item use there was really smart. That was very smart item use by me. And with that, I will that will be the last race of the stream. Okay. Quit the game. Yeah. Good stream. Very good stream. I don't know who I'm gonna raid now. Maybe I just won't raid anybody. That might be the course of action I decide upon ultimately. Let's see who's live. Then I'll decide. Mango. Mm. Whoa, 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 whoa. I think I'm actually gonna unfollow Hassan. Rip. Alright. Yeah, I think that'll conclude it. No raid this time. Thank you for watching, whoever was out there watching. I saw a couple of familiar faces in the chat box, even if they weren't actively participating in chat. And your presence is very much appreciated. So I will see you guys next time, which should be on Sunday. I might have to reschedule, but, you know, whatever. And I don't know if I have anything specific planned for then. Yeah, no, I don't have anything specific planned for Sunday. It'll just be like, is there any politics going on? Which undoubtedly there will be. Yeah, see you then.